Promises to be a really interesting afternoon. Debate over the place of plastics within the packaging economy. But to start us off, we're going to have a little bit of a political session for the next 15 minutes. My name is Jane Beavis. I'm the Executive Chair of OPRL Limited, the on-pack recycling label, working with Martin Kirsch, who's across there from the Food Services Packaging Association, to help curate the big carbon debate that we've been having. And many, many thanks to Charlie from Easy Fares, who's helped put all of this together. So we'll be hearing shortly a video presentation from Rebecca Pow, the Environment Minister, who also is Minister for Floods and is a little bit busy elsewhere today. So she sent her apologies, but was good enough to video a presentation and send it across to us. Yesterday she was seeing the Environment Bill through its second reading in the House of Commons. And that bill is likely to come into law in about April time, and will provide the enabling powers for the government to take forward a number of reforms. So when it was reintroduced back in January, it has added in some additional factors, such as looking to ban waste exports outside of OECD countries, something that could have a significant impact. It will introduce an Environment Protection Agency who will be tasked with benchmarking UK environmental law against international comparators to see whether we are addressing the same issues as are being looked at elsewhere, whether we're ahead of the game or falling behind. It will, of course, also look at extended producer responsibility, giving the powers for that, the deposit return scheme proposals for England, consistent collections across local authorities in England, possibly mandatory labelling for recycling on packaging. We will also an encouraging design for recyclability. We also are in a situation where the budget in 2 weeks' time will be making announcements on the plastics tax and the rate of levy that's going to apply on any plastic packaging with less than 30% recycled content. All of this is against the background of the talks going on about Brexit trade relationships with the EU, which of course in our sector will have enormous repercussions potentially. We're in a situation where the sector is debating the place of compostables and biodegradables and how that fits within what we're doing. There's the wider wish to establish a circular economy and the potential for jobs growth here in the UK that could bring. And there are the continuing concerns over the impact of packaging for products consumed on the go and littering and the environmental degradation that causes. So our sector is facing a lot of things within the political and regulatory landscape. And here's what the Minister has had to say about that.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all today. And first of all, I wanted to say well done to the Food Services Packaging Association for organising this whole event. Now, in December 2018, we published our Resource and Waste Strategy. The strategy aims to help society move away from a linear economy towards a circular economy and a much more sustainable economy. It's guided by two overarching objectives. Firstly, to maximise the value of resource use and minimise adverse environmental impacts. and secondly, to minimise waste and its impacts on the environment. By keeping resources in use for longer, for example through reuse, repair and recycling, we can reduce the need to extract new raw materials and avoid emissions involved during this process. We can also increase the lifetime of materials and products, thus generating less waste and avoiding emissions from manufacturing and waste management. Packaging has an important and positive role to play in reducing product damage and food waste. Plastic food packaging plays a key part in extending the shelf life of food. If food waste were a country, it would be the third biggest global greenhouse gas emitter behind China and the United States. In our strategy, we committed to reform our current packaging producer responsibility system. Through these reforms, we want to incentivise producers to make better, more sustainable decisions when designing and manufacturing packaging. We consulted on these reforms last year, and we will introduce an extended producer responsibility system for packaging in 2023. We're planning a second consultation on these reforms later this year. Now, our landmark Environment Bill, which is having its second reading in the House of Commons chamber this very afternoon, which is actually why I can't be with you in person, because I'll be there, it will enable us to take forward commitments in the resources and waste strategy and help us achieve our goal of becoming world leaders in maximising resource efficiency and minimising waste, moving towards the circular economy. Following the general election, the bill was reintroduced to Parliament on the 30th of January this year. Now, in April 2017, we published our litter strategy, setting out an ambition to clean up the country within a generation. We'll achieve this by focusing on education, infrastructure and enforcement, so that within a generation it will no longer be acceptable to drop litter. Wouldn't that be great? We've been making good progress to delivering on this approach. We launched the first national anti-litter campaign in a decade, based on sound evidence and funded predominantly by businesses, with further in-kind support totalling up to an effective value of £2.5 million in 2018-19. And we've nearly doubled on spot penalties for littering and introduced new penalties for littering from vehicles and fly tipping. In the last year, we've published improved guidance on enforcement, emphasising the need for enforcement to be fair, proportionate and in the public interest. We've awarded a further £130,000 through the Litter Innovation Fund to 14 new projects, given local councils nearly 10 million in additional funding to support them in cleaning up our high streets and our town centres, taken the Keep It, Bin It campaign to the Leeds Festival, and have rolled it out in cinemas, motorway service stations and railway stations around the country, worked with Mars Wrigley to incorporate Keep It, Bin It into their Bin It Schools programme, and worked with the Scouts Association in England and abroad to fund a resource package, it's a sort of pack, about plastic pollution for their Million Hand scheme. Councils in England are by and large maintaining good standards of cleanliness, but where problems occur they are obvious and of course reflect very badly on the whole country. The problem and the solutions though are complex, and we all have a responsibility to play our part. Street cleaning is expensive and consumes money that cannot then be used to provide other public services. In 2016-17, it cost local authorities in England an incredible £682 million to keep the streets clean, and it cost Welsh local authorities £54 million, and in 2017, and Scottish local authorities £53 million in 2014. So So that all adds up to a huge amount of money that realistically we shouldn't need to be spending at all. And litter as well has many hidden costs, from restricting local economic growth to harming the environment and wildlife. We know that packaging makes up a large proportion of the litter that must be collected from public bins and from the ground. And through our packaging producer responsibility reforms, we want producers to play their part in reducing litter. We proposed in our consultation last year that we include litter costs in the full net costs charged to packaging producers. This means that producers of on-the-go packaging would pay for the clean-up of littered packaging and for communications at a national and local level to help consumers to do the right thing and reduce littering. We recognise that consumer behaviour is key, and there are things that can and are being done by producers to influence the behaviour of their customers. You have communications channels and relationships with your customers that only you can access. You know the capabilities of your business and your customers best, and you have the opportunity to be innovative in exploring new ways to ensure that brands are not damaged by being seen as contributing to the problem of litter. Through the new system, we want to encourage packaging producers to design packaging so that it is not littered in the first place. For example, by designing packaging with fewer components. Finally, I know many of you involved engage regularly with my DEFRA officials. This engagement is absolutely vital in giving us the insight and the understanding we need to design and implement our policies. I'll be very interested to hear the outcomes of this debate, which is about such a timely subject, net zero carbon targets and plastic packaging. And I'd very much like to thank you all for your time and your energy as we work together to improve our environment, and I very much look forward to working with you and indeed meeting many of you in the future.
So, a few words from the Minister. You can see what's front of her mind there, which might not necessarily be the thing that is worrying you most about packaging and packaging design in future. But be assured, we will feed back to her what comes out of this afternoon.